Hey there, folks. How you doing? It's Scott, and it is Christmas Eve, but I'm going to edit this up and post it on Christmas, just as a little treat for those of you who are comics lovers like myself. Pardon me while I clean my glasses off here. So, one thing that I've been trying to uh, focus on a little bit more here towards the end of the year is I, I I have a I've developed a funny interest over the years in comics that are just obscure for one reason or another. Maybe they're just kind of considered disposable, like a lot of the ads that you find in comics. Of course, if you know my work, you're familiar with the webcomic that I did for a while, basically repurposing the old ad artwork for the insult that made a man out of Mac that Charles Atlas had. Um, so in the last few years, I've been buying up bundles of beaten up comics and scanning weird old ads with a goal toward creating a kind of archive. And as I've done that, I've also picked up other just kind of oddball comics, comics that you kind of never see around, or which are in, maybe they're in some kind of rights related nightmare, so they're never going to be reprinted, or, people just never cared about them that much to begin with. And I've been scanning some of those too. And one of the more interesting ones, I just finished scanning it last night, and I'm posting it today along with this or well, on Christmas along with this video. It's a spin-off of the classic science fiction film by Stanley Kubrick, 2001: A Space Odyssey. So, comic book collectors, especially Jack Kirby fans, are very familiar with Jack's adaptation of the film, which was published as a treasury-sized edition, a larger kind of tabloid-sized comic book. And it's a really great adaptation, probably as good as we could hope for. Certainly at that time, it was published, I think, in 1975 or thereabouts, well after the movie came out. But it was a time when Marvel was trying to kind of get into the whole licensing comics with movies and all that stuff. They also did adaptations, for example, of I believe they did a comics version of the Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band movie. So, they weren't all great. But the 2001 adaptation by Kirby is quite good. And it basically sits right in the middle of I would argue, his last great period in making comics between the New Gods and the Eternals, basically. He did all this other crazy stuff, including 10 issues of this book, 2001: A Space Odyssey. And you may ask yourself, well, what the heck was there to go on about for 10 issues? Not a lot. People did not like this book, as I discovered as I went through scanning. One of the things that I scanned was the letters column, where people would write in, and people didn't have the reverence for Kirby back then that they do now, and they had no problem writing into the letter column for the New Gods or whatever and saying, "I don't know, Jack, it's no Thor, is it?" Um, anyway, it is a very the tone of the letters in the 2001 comics are much like that. It's very skeptical, and I think kind of with good reason, because while the adaptation of the film itself in the Treasury is quite faithful and captures the tone of the film, after that it's basically Jack iterating through the theme of the film over and over again, and kind of flashing back between scenes of kind of primitive humanity and primitive battles and primitive alien races, getting inspired by the monolith or encountering the monolith, and then in the future, they're, recapturing that, they're meeting the monolith again, or they're looking back on how it helped them evolve, or all that sort of thing. That's pretty much what happens in every issue of this 2001 spinoff, for the first few issues. And then after that, Jack kind of gets back to being his old usual self and kind of creating. I think in many ways, he was kind of just adapting scripts that could have been in almost any comic and then wrap the 2001 conceit around it. And there's kind of an ongoing theme in the book about finding the new seed that would be worthy of the monolith's advice, or who knows. The way that resolves itself ultimately, after half a dozen issues of people complaining, is, and probably with a bit of pressure from Marvel as the licensee, to come out of the title with, something that they'd be able to continue and keep for themselves. Jack created this guy, X-51, aka Machine Man. And that is really the most significant thing, in my opinion, about this entire run of comics. It's where Machine Man comes from. Machine Man is a pretty fun Marvel character. I would say one of Jack's last significant creations for Marvel, certainly. He's basically, he's kind of a Marvel equivalent of Robot Man from the Doom Patrol. Or Lieutenant Commander Data later on from Star Trek. He's a living machine, and he has the feelings of a person, but he's mechanical, and he can do all kinds of fantastic things. And later on in the 80s, there was a series drawn by Barry Windsor Smith, I believe, that was really well done, of a mini series just about Machine Man. And he has shown up here and there since then. He's a member of Next Wave, so obviously one of the greats. I haven't really gotten into the analysis stage of this whole project yet, so this is more of the initial PVD, I guess you could say, for this. But I did want to point out one little thing that I thought was interesting, as I was scanning through these comics in the last couple of days. I'm gonna page through one on the screen for you right now. This is the first issue, and see if you notice anything. So there's first page. Following pages are a spread. Following pages, couple of ads. Another spread of 2 pages. After that, another spread of 2 ads. After that, another spread of 2 pages. After that, do you see a pattern here? Another spread of 2 pages. All the issues are like this. There are no... I'll have to double check, but after a while, I noticed this a couple issues in. I was like, huh. So I started to really watch for it. And I don't think there are any pages, Kirby art pages, that are not part of a spread. In other words, 2 art pages side by side, as opposed to an art page next to an ad. And I wonder about that. I wonder if there was an agreement with the licensor to say, okay, if you're going to depict our movie, it must always be like, we just want Kirby. We just want the Kirby stuff. We know he's going to be working on that Argo project one day. We're excited. I'm betting, especially with licensed comics, I'm betting they have agreements where they'll be like, we don't want anything to do with any depiction of our movie next to an ad for, dick pills or get rich quick schemes or O.J. Simpson selling shoes. So, good decision, probably. Um, but what makes that extra interesting about the spreads is it gave Jack some freedom whenever he wanted to do double page, double splash spreads. Not that he ever needed much incentive to do so. I noticed too when I was saving files that every issue of this, now the standard length of a comic book, uh, pretty much always in America, is 32 pages, not counting the cover. 32 interior pages. Um, and the standard kind of assignment for a comic book creative team would be to create 22 pages of content, and then the remaining 10 is ads. Well, every issue of 2001 A Space Odyssey only has 17 pages of content. 17 Kirby pages plus the cover every issue. Interesting. Um, and I think that may have led to, I alluded earlier to how they kind of didn't like this series very much, and they would write in and complain about how repetitive it was and wasn't really, they didn't feel it was capturing the spirit of the movie sometimes, and so on. It's hard to create a great series when you're automatically knocking 20% off of the page count, I would think. Um, yeah, so I think that's kind of interesting too. Uh, I'm as someone whose background, such as it is in comics analysis, kind of relates to basically mapping out grids and how they relate to each other. This is what I did with Watchmen years ago. I'm very intrigued now to look at this entire series just from a double page, double wide perspective and just see how those spreads map out issue after issue. Some of them are very, very cool, and I'm very happy to share them with you because some of the art, I mean, it's still Kirby art. Some of it's pretty great. The story, but that's Kirby in the '70s for you. So I hope you enjoy this rare glimpse at the comic book version of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Um, I will include a scan. I haven't scanned it yet. The Treasury, that one I feel uh, I'm not so concerned about that one because I don't think it's too hard to find a scan of that online already. Of course, there's lots of big fans of the film and of Kirby, and and that Treasury edition is kicking around. You can buy it on its own on eBay. I got mine years ago at the Silver Snail, I believe, in Toronto. Um, so yeah, I think I'll actually probably do a separate video about that because it is its own thing. But I wanted to do one just about this, as I say, as an object of study for me in the next little while. Happy holidays, everybody. Thanks. Enjoy.